There is a house close to the gates of the park on Dublin's North Circular Road. The house stands in the centre of a block near the corner where the road drops down a hill. The Georgian dwelling has 6 wide steps that lead to the front door. Beside the door is a window. Above them are 2 more. And beneath them is another one, a window that is. The one that looks at the pedestrians as they walk past. All in all, there was 6 steps, 1 door and 4 windows. The one at the bottom is the basement, and that's where Peepy lives. Peepy, the 25-year-old redhead, has a splatter of freckles that spread across the bridge of her nose. She's green eyes, olive skin and a beautiful face. Peepy stands 5 feet 6 inches tall, with a strong build and a who dares to win attitude. She has a red rose tattoo on the back of her neck. Peepy wears jeans, not skirts, unless the occasion calls for it. She works as a house painter, trained as a cage fighter, loves art, fashion, music and spicy food. Now, not far from her house is a shop that rested near the gates of the park, and outside that shop sat a young girl. She sat there in the morning, in the evening and sometimes late into the night. One day Peepy stopped, looked at the girl and asked her name. I have 3 different names. Mole, Molly, or Gumball Molly, or Molly Gumball. Well, that's 4 names. Which one do you like? Molly. I like to be called Molly Gumball. Molly Gumball it is then. Can I get you something in the shop? Oh, Peepy had been watching her for quite some time. She was of a tender age, only 14, Peepy suspected. Her hair was blonde, short, with 2 braids on either side. She wore a yellow dress and faded jeans. Her haircut was boyish, but her face was pretty, and she did not look or sound homeless. How do you sound homeless? Answer, the very opposite of what she did. A thought flashed across Peepy's mind. It was a thought that had popped in and out of her head over the last few days. Someone else might have noticed her. Her youthful looks, her eyes full of innocence and the sweetness of her lips. When Peepy came out of the shop, she handed her the drink and the chocolate and crisps. Would you like to go for a walk, Molly Gumball? Yes, please. That would be so exciting. Looking up while opening the crisp, she said, pleasant, not exciting. Peepy nodded and smiled. Hark, Peepy tried to bring up the subject of homelessness. Molly spared her the ordeal. I'm not homeless, I have a home. My mother died. Ma'am was a wonderful pet. She was full of life, adventure, and happiness. Dad is anything but. Oh, Ma'am was my world. Dad married again. Yes, he married a horrid woman, much like himself. And I never got on. My sister says it is because we are so alike. She tells lies. She dislikes Dad as much as I do. So her little lamb's way is to agree with everyone. Sorry, would you like a crisp? She said, turning the pack toward Peepy. No thanks. What is your name? Molly cut across. Well, like you, I have 3 different names. Penny, Penelope, or Peepy. Everyone calls me Peepy. I like it. Where do you sleep, Molly? Sleep, I sleep in a secret place high above the world, out of sight of tigers and wild animals. She turned and walked backwards with the crisp in hand and the Coke in one pocket of her jacket and the bar in the other. She smiled. Oh, I'm not afraid. The night is wonderful, the moon watches me, the stars come out to see me in my splendid world under the open sky. What about your dad? Where does he think you are? Surely he must be worried. Nope. How can you be sure? My first night out of the house, alone. I was convinced he'd come looking for me. He never did. My dad ordered the curry, drank wine and went to bed. He never once mentioned me. I rang my sister and she told me all of the above. How old are you? I'm 16 years of age. She looks younger, Peepy thought. I'm very glad we met. And I'm sure you feel the same way, Peepy. I do. Now let's sit over here. They found a bench and sat and talked. All the time, Peepy was trying to figure out her next move. If and only if she invited this homeless runaway into her house. This young girl was entering into her world. At only 24, Peepy felt too young to be mothering anyone, let alone a 16-year-old with a tall story, a real story or anything but a story. Okay, so tell me about your family again, Molly Gumball. Again, Molly Gumball. Chapter 2. My sister and I looked like each other. Well, everyone says you and your sister look like one another. To which I'd reply, in my head, yes, we are sisters. We are supposed to look like one another. There was a shop where we lived, and in it was an old man. He was a nice old man who gave us sweets. We didn't need him to give us sweets because we had money. Ma'am always gave us money. One day my sister Rachel, did I tell you my sister's name was Rachel? Anyway, we found the man lying behind the counter as drunk as a skunk. That's what our ma'am said. She paused. And Peepy could see her chase a memory. Then Molly blurted, Mr. Rogers is as drunk as a skunk. Yes, that's what ma'am would say, only she'd say it better. Mr. Rogers is as drunk as a skunk. It was at that moment that her gaze escaped her, but it wasn't long before she captured it and said, Mr. Rogers liked to talk and talked a lot, but whatever he had to say he needed to say it fast, because his wife, Mrs. Rogers, liked to talk too. And she'd out-talk him any day. Ma'am said that Mrs. Rogers would talk the hind legs of a donkey. I never understood how anyone could talk the hind legs of a donkey. Outside his shop were flowers. He hid them in big boxes. They were timber boxes. He was always fixing them and watering them. In the summer, he'd take tiny drops of water and flick them at us to make us laugh. Mr. Rogers loved to see us laugh. I think he liked to see everyone laugh. It was his favorite thing. Now, above the shop lived a man who had a dog. The dog had a happy face. The dog was tall and the man was small. Everyone called the man Peanut. I don't know why they called him that, but he never seemed to mind. Some people, like Ma'am, said he was Mr. Rogers' long-lost brother. I never found out how he got lost and how long it was till they found him. My sister had green eyes, Hazel, Ma'am said, like yours. I have brown, and Ma'am has blue. She corrected herself, had blue. She had blue and my dad had grey, yes, grey eyes. We had our own rooms, you know. I had one, my sister had another, and our parents had separate rooms also. They did not get on. Turning, you're ever so quiet, Peepy, what's your full name? She opened the can of Coke. I'll let you in on a secret. My name is Penelope Peabottom, but everyone knows me as Peepy, like I said. Peepy reached her hand out. Molly took hold of it and Peepy said, pleased to make your acquaintance, Molly Gumball. Likewise, the young girl replied. For the smallest of seconds, Peepy thought of her mother. In her mind's eye, she could see her. She'd be walking about the kitchen with a rolling pin in her hand, while Peepy sat sipping soup. Yes, soup, chicken soup, on a table made from timber matching the press, the units, and the door. Her father finished the back wall with white tiles. The wallpaper is floral, like the curtains, only the pattern is larger, much larger. So you did what? You taken a runaway fugitive from no man's land. I can't believe it. Of all the things to do, and at your age. And from no man's land and in your state. State? Wah state? Let's not go there. You're right about that, she thought, turning away from the ramblings in her head. Another thought ran across her mind. It ran so fast she barely caught it. Whatever I do, my mother will be the last to know. Peepy had yet to decide on what to do next. She only had two options, walk away or bring her close. Invite her to stay or say goodbye. She noticed Molly throwing her a few glances. Molly lied about sleeping out. The whole experience frightened her. She dreaded the evenings as the night closed in. But it was a sunny morning. The trees were in bloom, the birds were in full flight, and the world did not seem so frightening. She loved the mornings. There was much to be thankful for and plenty to think about. She could always go home, but she knew she probably never would. Molly had made the move. She'd crossed the line of no return. However, sleeping rough was not a long-term plan. That was definitely out of the question. But what do I do next? She pondered, glancing once again at Peepy. It was in a shared glance that something happened. They became friends, and for some reason, Peepy was assured that her next move was the right move. Standing up, she said, "Right, Molly, we need to get back. It looks like it might rain." And off she went with Molly trailing behind. "Can we get a dog?" "I never had a dog." Ma'am was a little afraid. "So I promised myself that one day I would get one." Peepy smiled as she walked ahead. She smiled and said, "Once it's not a Rottweiler, what would you call him?" "Well, If it was a boy and he was brown, I'd call him Biscuit. And if it was a girl, Mams, I'd call her Mams after Mam. The basement contained a seating area and kitchen, a toilet and shower, and a bedroom, with a back window. It was a well-cared-for place with a lot of art hanging on the walls. Peepy painted the walls green while she finished the timber floors in a light grey. She had bought a sofa bed when she first took up residence over a year ago. Therefore, Molly had nothing to worry about with her sleeping arrangements. The next morning, Molly awoke on her first day in her new bed. She pulled the curtains and gazed at the streets, feeling the benefits of having a good sleep. It did not take her long to warm to the room, the bed and the streets outside her window. People walked on either side of the street. They were going to the zoo or to the park. Or both. It was a beautiful day. Kids gathered outside the shop. Peepy had gone to work. Molly made herself breakfast, a bowl of cereal, toast and jam and a cup of coffee. Peepy rang. "Are you in, or out, Molly?" "In. Do you want me to make you dinner? I'm a splendid cook. How about—" "Hold on, listen, did you hear the news?" "The news? What news?" "Okay, they found a man in the park yesterday running with a knife. He'd slashed a sleeping bag he'd found about 10 times. He thought someone was in it." Alarm bells went off in Peepy's head. Then she thought, it isn't what Molly told me about her story. It's what she left out. Was that a random attack or was it personal? And if so, is there someone watching me? That's terrible news. Thank God I never slept in the park. Do you want me to make dinner? Silence. "Well," Peepy replied, followed by another long silence. No, tell you what, I'll grab a curry on the way home." "Great beef curry and chips," Molly said, speaking into a phone that had gone dead. Molly fell on her knees and thanked God that she had a place to stay. Chapter 5. Now upstairs right above them lived the Sweetpeas. Honey and Tommy Sweetpea. Both their parents were from Nigeria. Honey and Tommy weren't. The only time they saw Nigeria was on a map. They were Dublin red, and they both spoke with a heavy Northside accent. Honey lived up to her name because she was as sweet as pie. That's what people would say, you know, honey, she's as sweet as pie. And so she was, but she was also very inquisitive. Honey liked to know what was going on, and if there was anything creeping about under her nose she was on it like a shot. If there was anything that Honey prided herself more in other than the fact she spoke her mind, she did not know it. She was as sweet as pie, speaking your mind, descendant of a Nigerian, with a tough Dublin upbringing. I have to say there is something going on downstairs, in Peepy's place, she said to Tommy, who nodded. Tommy nodded a lot. He nodded this way and said very little, but he nodded a lot. "Is there a tongue in there?" she asked, prizzing open his mouth. "Hey, Nodball, have a chat. Grab a coffee and give your brain a rest." Turning swiftly she said, "Is my bum too big in this?" "Your bum is too big in everything," he thought. "No, it's fine." "Are you sure?" "Most definitely." His tone did not give her confidence. It did quite the opposite, it caused her to doubt. She looked at him. The look told her more than any word could. "Oh, Jess is coming to stay." "Stay? It's only for a few weeks, relax." "I'll relax when the few weeks, as you put it, are up, and your brother, Jess, is gone home." "Why is he coming to stay here anyway?" "He has gotten. Don't tell me he is in trouble with a gang." Wanging her finger, she said, No. Oh no. I might let myself say it again. I might." She stood over him. He moved back. She bent, resting her elbow on the chair. He tried to inch back, but he found that to be a pointless exercise, as there was nowhere else to go. They stared at one another. He said nothing, she said less. Neither spoke. Not a word, nor a whisper, or a grunt. Then they heard something crash beneath them. Honey jumped back. "I knew it, someone had broken into Peepy's room." "Well, we are not getting involved, ring the police." "No, I'm doing that, she is our neighbor, end of." "You ring, I'll sort it." Honey stood 6 foot, weighed 200 pounds and had strong arms. "If she hits you it is lights out." She ever so carefully opened her door and tippy-toed down the stairs with a frying pan in her hand. Tommy, who was a small man, followed her. He had no idea why he was doing that, but as her husband he felt it was his duty to watch his wife knock a burglar out. When suddenly the door opened and Molly stepped out and said, "Hello, I'm Molly, Molly Gumball or Gumball Molly. But I do like Molly Gumball better. You are Honey and you are Tommy. I do like Honey, it is a nice name. I do like nice names and I know you are both nice people. Is there anyone for tea? Only we are out of tea bags." Chapter 6. You are very sweet, Molly. Are you staying with Peepy? Yes, we are friends. Well, we only just met. What I mean is we only met like a few days ago, Honey said. Yesterday. Do you like dogs? We are getting one. Not just now but sometime soon. A small one. We will be getting a small guy. A little fellow. She lifted her hand and separated her thumb from her finger. A tiny fella. And Honey thought, do you like boys 'cause we are getting one of them? She looked sternly at Tommy, who did not know what to make of the whole thing. And his thinking was, Molly Gumball, Gumball Molly, big dogs, small dogs, tiny ones when? What? Who is this girl? Just then there came 3 loud knocks on the door. Who could that be? Asked Honey. Tommy said, I'll find out. And so he went and opened the door, only to discover a young girl of about 14 years of age, with large hazel eyes. Tommy blocked the entrance as if he was a bouncer. The young girl said, "Hello, my name is..." Before she could utter another word, Molly jumped and clapped and shouted, "That's my sister. Rachel," for that was her sister's name, stuck her head around Tommy's waist, smiled and said, "Malls." They ran toward each other and stopped. Then they jumped a little and kicked out tiny steps, clapping and smiling until they embraced warmly. All Honey could think was, how absolutely adorable they are. Molly turned, holding tight her sister's hand, and said, "This is my sister, Rachel. Rachel, these are my new friends, Honey and Tommy." Rachel looked around until her eyes rested on the frying pan Honey was still holding, and so she blurted, "Are you going camping? Our dad brings his frying pan when goes camping." Oh, no. She was about to tell a lie, but she stopped herself. Honey could never tell lies. "The truth is, I came down the stairs." She switched her gaze and pointed upstairs. "We live up there." Where was I? Oh yes, I, or should I say we were Tommy and I. Yes, I was coming down the stairs with my frying pan to bash Molly's head in with me pan. Silence. "Charming," muttered Rachel. "Oh, I think we are going to get on swimmingly. I really do," said. Chapter 7. Now there came a moment when everyone was not only trying to find their feet, but their minds as well, because they found little to say. The truth is they said nothing at all but eyed each other warily. Tommy, encountering the awkward moment, a troubling one, blurted, "Breakfast rolls." "Who's for breakfast rolls?" "Sausage, rasher, mushrooms, and pudding." "White or brown roll?" "Sauce or none," said Honey. "Molly, what would you like?" "Well, if it is all the same as I had breakfast, I would like a donut with coffee." Turning his head as if he was a commander in the army, he said, "Rachel." "Me too. I'll have the same as Molly." "No, ma'am." Molly paused, then she said, "You're too young for coffee." Okay, popcorn, jelly babies and a chicken roll," said Rachel. She looked around wide-eyed at the strangers, wondering what was going on. "Who buys you a chicken roll for the sake of it? Is that a white roll or a brown one, and do you want ketchup on it?" asked Tommy in a whisper. Rachel cupped her hand to her mouth and said, "Brown with ketchup." After a wonderful breakfast together, Honey said, "For a Molly, you are very jolly." "Jolly Molly, yes, I like that name. I prefer Mole." "Yes, I do think it is better," said Rachel. "Well, I think Molly Jolly is fitting," answered Molly. "Molly J, yes, that's it. My name is Molly J Gumball. New day, new start and a new name, new everything." Later, Molly showed her sister her room. Molly lay on the chair, Rachel lay beside her and hugged her. "I love you, Mole. And I you." Together they silently wept over the loss of their mother, whom Molly liked to call Mams, for they missed her dearly. Chapter 8. Now, the sisters' stepmother was Lizzie Butts. She found the name Gumball distasteful, so she refused to take it on her wedding day. She was tall, thin, standing 5 feet and 6 inches. Her hair was long, brown like her eyes. She was as cold as they come. Lizzie wanted everything the world had to offer, a husband, a fine home, holidays and plenty of money. What she did not wish to have were children. Children were out of the question, and Lizzie, being a woman who liked to voice her opinion, had no qualms about letting people know. "I never wanted children of my own, let alone someone else's bundle of joy," she'd say to anyone who asked after Molly or Rachel. What she thought was, Molly was a troublemaker and Rachel a dreamer. Get rid of one and the other one will follow. She was the elephant in the room, the whale in the sea, the bird in the air, and the watcher who watched them like a hawk. Liz Butts was 25 years of age, and her husband, the girl's father, was 34 years of age. He was only 18 when Molly was born, although her mother was 25. Liz Butts was the street busybody. She liked to know who was who, and what was what. Across the street lived Sean. He was a family friend. The following afternoon, as he was working his garden, he saw Lizzie and said, "Hi Lizzie, it is a wonderful day." "It is," she replied, rushing up the path. Sean could be a right busybody himself, and Lizzie hated competition. She put the key in the door. He called again. She bit her lip. He didn't give up. "Lizzie, oh Lizzie, can I have a word?" The key could not turn quickly enough. It seemed to stay stuck, smiling in defiance of its owner. "Lizzie Petal, could I have a word?" His voice was coming closer. "Galloping gremlins," she muttered. She often used words like that, galloping gremlins, jumping Jehoshaphat, or her favorite, holy guacamole. However, it was not holy guacamole, for galloping gremlins was very much suited for the situation, because she barely got the door open and there he was standing right behind her. "In a rush are we, Lizzie Petals?" "Oh, Sean, there you are." Crossing his fingers, he pushed his hands towards the ground. "There I am indeed. Would you like to come in and have a coffee?" she asked. "No, I never go into a lady's house alone without my nearest and dearest." He dropped his top lip beneath his bottom lip and stuck it out while he raised his eyebrow. Lizzie looked at him and thought, "Holy guacamole, what a dum-dum, he's visited my house a million times alone, without his nearest and dearest." I saw. He paused and looked right and left, cupped his hand, drew near and whispered, "Molly and Rachel. You better come in for that coffee." "Okay," he said, stepping in behind her. Chapter 9. Molly and Peepy had come in from shopping. They dropped the bags in the hall. The house was well lived in. It was the first thing you sensed when you walked through the door. Peepy loved cooking, and so did Honey, so together they filled the house with wonderful aromas. 2 weeks had passed. Molly said, "I love it here." "You do," Peepy said. "I do." "That's great news." "Great news, how?" "You mean great news, why?" "Okay, great news why?" "Because Molly, I'm going away for a week, and I need you to look after the place for me." "Can my sister come over?" "Yes, of course." Molly clapped and twirled and said, "I'm so excited." "Okay, great news why?" "Because Molly could not contain herself. She was so happy she skipped and danced and made such a racket that Honey came down and joined her in her dance. Honey took her hand and twirled her around. Molly kicked her foot to the left, while Honey moved her hip to the right. So it was a foot to the left and a hip to the right, and Peepy clapped. And Molly stopped dead in her tracks and cried. Now her movements were so sudden and unexpected that Honey flung her arm around her and said, "Whatever is the matter, Jolly Molly?" With her head facing the ground and a curled lip, she mumbled one word, "Ma'am." This one word was followed by silence, and a break in the silence came when this word was spoken, "Mams." "Oh, how I miss Mams. I do miss her. I can't be happy, no never, when I know my dearest Mams is not here." Honey, who was a full-fledged speaking in tongues Pentecostal Christian, said, "Fear not, for you will hear your sweet mother's voice again." "Oh, you should not play a joke on me, Honey, when I am bereaved and embittered in spirit, as I am now. I would never do such a thing." Peepy joined in. Honey could not find it in herself to be unkind. "Molly." "Oh, okay, I'm sure you are right, Peepy, you are a very nice person and I consider you my friend, Honey." "I am Molly," said Honey. "If the hour comes when the piano is silenced, who will play the next note?" "Molly." "I don't know. I never played the piano, so I have not got a clue when the hour comes that it is silenced. All in good time, Molly, all in good time, repeated Honey. And so it happened that something was unfolding in a different house across town. As Sean and Lizzie sat chatting over coffee, they were quite unaware that Rachel was upstairs listening to every word that poured out of their mouths. Chapter 10. The girl's mother's name was May. She was from Galway. May never lost the love she had for her hometown. She shared the same feelings for Ireland's west coast, but her city, she said, was a dynamic, bohemian place of culture, with popular resorts that had beautiful beaches, and a long, winding promenade. Galway was always on her mind. She had promised herself that one day she'd return to her beloved city. She never did. Not even for a weekend break. She'd tell the girls about Galway Bay and its lanes and colourful shops, and how the streets were alive with music from buskers from all over the world. You'll see, I'll bring you there one day, I promise. That promise never came to pass, but another one she made did. The second promise she made to her daughters was that she would make a voice recording for them. Now on the recording was advice on how they should live in a very promiscuous world. May, in her last few weeks, recorded her voice on her phone and converted the recording to an MP3. The girls never saw that MP3, let alone heard it. Somehow it got lost, or did it? Lizzie gave her mornings to thinking, her afternoons to talking, and her evenings to plotting. An idea popped into her head, and the head she had welcomed the idea that plopped in. I better move that MP3, just in case. In case of what, she asked herself. She stood and walked across the kitchen. She pressed the button on the kettle. Lizzie loved her kitchen. It was her favorite place in the whole wide world. Well, the whole wide world might be a bit over the top. The kitchen was her favorite place in her house. Her house. Really? No, her husband's house, and his late wife's kitchen. And there lies the problem, or to be more clear, the kitchen was part of the problem. What problem? The one that not only separated the daughters from their father but destroyed the family unit. May loved her kitchen. When she was refurbishing her kitchen, she asked Molly and Rachel to join her with her design. The young girls loved it. However, the most terrible thing happened. And while May was being laid to rest, Lizzie moved in and tore the kitchen apart. On the wall was a patch pasted to the wall with 3 names and a date written on it. The names were May, Molly and Rachel. Lizzie made sure that went into the bin. Her latest scheme was to remove the MP3 she had hidden. What she did not know was while she sat chatting with Sean, she told him about the MP3 and where she had hidden it for safe measure. Rachel removed it and copied the files onto her computer and to a cloud and her MP3. And it came to pass that over time Rachel brought what she had found to Molly for both to hear it. There was a strange atmosphere in the room when she took the MP3 from her pocket and placed it on the table. They both looked at it, and for a few moments stood without saying a word. Molly looked at Rachel, and Rachel gazed at Molly. A few minutes later, they made sure the door was closed. Then they placed the MP3 into Molly's computer and sat and listened to their late mother's words. On hearing her voice they bellowed. The wailing could be heard throughout the house, so Honey and Tommy fell to their knees and prayed for the sisters. When the crying stopped, Honey came down the stairs and gently knocked on their door. The sisters welcomed her, and over a cup of cocoa together they listened again to May and the advice she left for her daughters. Chapter 11. You are the apple of my eye, the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. From the moment of your conception, I loved you. My love has no limit, it can never die, no, never. Now, my dear children, if men, cruel men with evil intent, come to you to entice you, don't give in to them. Their words are smooth as oil, but their motives are deadly. They bite like a serpent. Stay alert, walk upright, and cling to the virtues of the humble. Avoid the wayward, for they love darkness and all malice talk. Be kind and considerate and love one another, for by this people will know you belong to me and I to you. Be prudent in all you do, and this is accomplished by keeping great command of what you say and to who you say it. Lay hold of these words and keep them in your heart. Don't be afraid of what is whispered in the dark corners of back rooms, because everything hidden will be brought into the light. So these are the teachings my mother gave me when I was tender of age. And Molly and Rachel, she said to my siblings and me. The whispering voice is not only what goes on outside but the one deep in your own heart. Bring everything into the light. If a person kills his conscience, there is nothing more to be lost. I want you to look upon my words as a person. I will call him Mr. Wisdom. Mr. Wisdom is to stay with you and walk with you all the days of your life, if and only if you obey my words. Now above all things, riches, fame, and a good name, get understanding, seek her out, take hold of her, and in due season she will reveal to you many things and the right path to take. Now you will ask how we will know when Mr. Wisdom turns up. Okay, the wisdom will be pure, peaceable, gentle and easy to follow. It cannot be found in words alone, for many can speak with fine words but look for actions. The wisdom I talk about is seen in a person of action, not just talk. Well, if that is not the best thing I ever heard, nothing is, and I mean nothing, said Honey. Your mother was a wise lady, yes, a very wise lady, Molly and Rachel. Ma'am was the dearest and sweetest person God ever allowed to walk on his planet. Rachel nodded. Yes, she was our mammies and the best of the best, nothing more and nothing less. It is up to us to follow her words to the letter. It is from this moment on that we have a mission, and that is to shine, Molly added. What about Lizzie? Asked Honey. Forgiveness is the only answer, said the sisters, in unison. Honey crossed her fingers and sat back and smiled. She loved the answer and thought about how many trails she had been on to learn that one valuable lesson. Here were the sisters, so young and yet so wise in many ways. Yes, it can be said that Honey was very pleased with the answer. She looked around the room and saw how much of a change Molly brought to the space. Posters and patch quilt pens, pencils, computers, and her iPad and phone. She had, with Peepy's permission, converted it into a real 16-year-old hangout. Of course, everything belonged to Peepy. However, anytime Molly needed something, it just so happened that Peepy was looking to give hers away, like an iPad or computer. Oh, this old thing, I have outgrown it. I need a new one. I was thinking maybe you could get some use out of it, Molly. Molly was far from thick. She knew Peepy was looking for ways to be kind. Thank you, you are the sweetest person, you truly are, Peepy. I will treasure you forever. If there is such a place called forever and ever, that is where I will find you, deep in my heart forever and ever. Peepy was not great at taking compliments, so she'd brush it off. Now don't worry, it's only old stuff. She paused, and said, thanks anyway, Molly. Chapter 12. Molly, like her sister, drank down every word that her mother left her. She listened so intently to her late mother's voice that she memorized everything she said. One morning while out on a walk, she was impressed to contact Lizzie. She did not know where this impression was coming from. The only thing she knew was the need to fix things and tell Lizzie how much she has forgiven her. Molly arranged to meet her in the Phoenix Park. She'd gone for a 10-minute stroll when a car pulled up at the spot near the deers. Molly's heart skipped a beat when she saw Lizzie step from the car wearing a long cream coat with her sunglasses on her head. Molly could not deny it. Lizzie looked very refined and impressive. Lizzie did what was expected of her. She looked Molly up and down. Holy guacamole, you are a sight. Okay, let us get straight to the point. Lizzie, do get straight to the point. Did you tell my dad? Tell your dad what? That we were meeting up for a chat? No, I did not. I don't think he'd be too interested, so why bore him with nonsense? I forgive you, Molly blurted. She had to say it as quickly as she could, or she would have walked away angrier than she had been. Her mother's voice was whispering to her. Bitterness comes to stay, unless you walk away. The greatest weapon is forgiveness. Nothing else will do. Forgive every time. Don't wait for a feeling, because feelings are powerless. Only actions are empowered to bring change. You what? I forgive you, Lizzie. You forgive me. You? Oh my jumping Jehoshaphat! How dare you speak to me with such a snooty attitude? Galloping gremlins, is this why you wanted to see me? "What?" "Yes, my ma'am," said. "Your ma'am? Hi, your mother is dead, you silly little fool." "Your father is right, you are a stupid child. Good day." Molly turned swiftly and marched away, holding back the tears. The battle was on obeying her feelings or her mother's words, which was a test beyond her years. Honey was walking towards the house when she detected Molly in the distance. She gave her a wave, but Molly did not return the gesture. "Oh, she did not see me," thought Honey. As she neared her gate, Honey fired a sharp glance at Molly, but this time she noticed that Molly was dragging her feet with her head down. "That's not like Molly. Jolly Molly is not what I am seeing." Honey knew something was up. She said in a mumble, "She is carrying the cares of the world." But the weight of the world was about to be lifted. She just did not know it yet. Honey was waiting for her as she burst through the hall door in tears. On seeing the kind face of Honey, she cried all the more. Honey, being of a kind nature, held her, whispering, "There, the Molly. Don't fret, it only leads to evil. All will be well." The hall door opened and to her surprise, she saw Peepy and her sister. Her sister ran to her when she saw that Molly was upset. "Oh, Moles, whatever is the matter?" "Oh Rachel, I'm a little troubled and I am more upset now." "Why Moles, why?" Because she stopped, her lip quivered and she burst out crying. "I don't want to see you upset, and I may have caused that by me being upset." Her sister held her tight. "Oh no no, please don't be." They stood and faced each other, both wiping the tears from each other's faces. Peepy and Honey held back the tears. The sight was so ever endearing, if ever a sight was. Honey whispered a prayer. "I see your creatures and my eyes have beheld them. They are wonderful and altogether lovely." Peepy was holding a box. She stepped forward, placed a box on the ground and opened it. And there before them were the most adorable eyes looking back at the sister. The eyes belonged to a Cavapoo puppy. "Oh, look at him," Molly said, picking him up. "Is it a him?" she asked, looking at Peepy. She smiled and nodded and mouthed, "And he is all yours." She hugged him and kissed him. "His name is Teacup. He is my very best friend and my lovely little fellow." She sat on the ground and played with him. In her heart she whispered a prayer. "Honey told me all about you." "Well, Ma'am did too." "She did a lot." "Ma'am said you are so very kind." "Will you mind me and my sister, and my little Teacup, and Dad and Lizzie?" Honey said, "Well Molly J Gumball, you are so blessed, and I think it is time to bring Teacup on a few new adventures." She opened the hall door. Molly rose up, and together the five of them went out in search of new adventures. Peepy, Honey, Molly, Rachel, and Teacup